Welcome to another episode of Realationshits, where we talk about real shit in relationships. I am your husband,
and I am your wife.
and today let's talk about some winning and losing of arguments that should not be won or lost. So we saw something on TikTok or Instagram.
I think it was TikTok.
TikTok, of pretty much guy just kind of going on a rant or responding to something. Actually, we're going to go ahead and pull that up right now.
They think you're trying to win arguments. The whole time you're just trying to get them to understand you.
What makes this worse is once you initiate this conversation and you're trying to communicate how you feel about something, all of a sudden this other person wants to communicate on something that may have bothered them in the past, but they never wanted to speak about it. But now that you're bringing up your concern, they want to bring up their concern. And instead of them even understanding you to get that taken care of, now they want all the attention on them. And now you got to understand them before any of your concerns are ever taken care of.
So you want to start us off with that?
Okay, so first things first, if somebody is bringing something to your attention that made them feel uncomfortable, it, may have made them sad or angry, whatever the case may be, your job in that moment is to listen. Mm-hmm. If you have something that made you uncomfortable or whatever and you didn't bring it up, right now is not the time to bring it up. Sorry. This is not your opportunity. This is them.
What if you saying something in the midst of it has a reminder? Oh, well, what if it's a case like that? Like you just
But we've had that.
No, well, I know, but how would you go about that? Because that's
the right way. The right way to go about it is to table it. Like, you have your reminder, whatever you want to call it. It's still not your time. It's not your time.
Just eat it.
It's not about just eating it. Finish that conversation, and then you can bring whatever it is up that you want to bring up.
And I promise you, even thinking about your response is going to leave you not even listening in the first place. Because if you're talking and you're just like, yeah, okay, so I remember what it was that I really want to say to her since she bringing this to my attention. Don't do that because, again, you thinking about your response versus what that person's actually saying to you. So just listen to them, take heed what they got to say, man.
The important thing about it is understanding whenever somebody's bringing something up to you, it's not to start an argument 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. It's to make them feel more secure in the relationship, as well as it's to let you know to not repeat that behavior because it made them feel how they felt. So it's not about, and if it does lead to an argument, you need to understand where that argument is coming from. And if you're misunderstanding something they're saying, or if they presented it in a way that wasn't conducive to how you properly accept things. Because whenever we talk, if it leads to an argument, we're both like, hold up. Like,
what is it we really arguing
Let's
about?
take a second because somebody's not hearing something correctly. And you don't go into an argument trying to win an argument. A lot of people are like, I'm just trying to prove a point. And it's like, it's not about proving a point. It's about gaining an understanding between the two of you. Mm-hmm. And we had to learn that. It's not about, no, I want you to listen and you're going to feel how I feel about it because I feel how I feel about it. It's not about that. It's about the other person understanding why you feel how you feel. And then you taking that information and reflecting on yourself, like, how did I get them to feel that way? Yeah.
And there was a part where, most recent point where I had to admit to her, like, I'm not going to understand how you feel. I'm not. I can empathize as much as possible. I will never physically, mentally know exactly how you're feeling in this. But all you can do is just try and understand and at least assess the problem that your partner is bringing to the table. Granted, there are issues where some people are bringing problems into a conversation that sparks an argument, but that's not about the actual thing. That may be something that's been built up, or that's been something that's a sub to the main. And that is what I notice is a lot going on from my friends that I talk to, from just seeing things over, TikToks and people speaking on these situations where that's not the main problem. It may be a problem within that person's self that they're not recognizing, or it's something else that may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. It could have been something like that. So you need to fully recognize exactly what it is you need to bring to their attention. without receipts. Don't try and bring up because it's cool to point something out, but don't make it seem like it was something 2 weeks ago that you bring it up that just sparked this giant thing. Because then that person gonna feel blindsided though.
But if the person is like, give me examples. So there's two sides to this. If the person is like, well, give me an example. You can give them an example without being condescending. But on the flip side of that, if you cannot think of an example in that moment, that does not give the other person the right to be like, see, you don't even know what you're talking about.
I really hate that example thing. Not to say like it's not valid in a conversation, but there's always like I wish when that example comes, I wish that could be addressed then and there. And
I get that, but you remember that's why we stopped with the give me an example.
Yeah,
like it's not a good thing, but some people like examples.
They do.
So that's why I said it. If your partner is a person that likes examples, give them an example, but don't be like, oh, you want an example? Here's an example. You remember when?
On January 17, 2012. Remember when you did that?
Don't do all of that. If they ask for an example, just be like, okay, on this day or whenever we were doing this happened, and this is how I felt, and this is why I feel how I feel now. This is how it's connected. Say it very calmly.
In that moment, I didn't want to bring it to your attention because it wasn't the time and the place. But now that we're talking about it now, this is a direct example of what I'm trying to bring to you for you to understand. Again, I hate because that's. And even there are people who just like, just oblivious even to the example. Like, nah, that's not what happened. And, well, that's the example I'm trying to give you. Or like, I really wish there was a way, or if you could help me figure out how we figured out the way to bring something up in that moment that was based off of a conversation that.
So we have kind of two things that we do. Like if we're first of all, what's that saying that we found that we liked? Defend me in public, correct me in private, however that go. We don't correct each other in public. Like if we together and something happen, like we might be, like, I got you, but chill out. Like, yeah.
It takes a look. Sometimes like,
but
just reeling in my
first
dog.
of all, I'm not gonna shame you. I'm gonna have you back. If we wrong together. But when we by ourselves, I'm gonna tell you that you was wrong, and I'm gonna tell you how you was wrong. But I'm not gonna tell you in a condescending manner.
Yeah.
So that was one of the bigger things for us, to make sure that we have each other's back in public, and we address it in private, one-on-one, so that we can understand where the conversation went left, where we were wrong, if our facts were not checked, whatever the case may be.
You want to give the example of the light correction you have to give me in private? A certain word that I just apparently I was pronouncing incorrectly in the faces of professional people.
Oh God, it was adorable. I love when you do that. It's so cute. So we were in the process of buying a house, and we were asking questions about, typical house stuff, like any issues in the past with this, that, and the third. So we got to the issue of flooding, and we asked if it was a flood zone. We asked if they've ever had any flooding in the past, yada, yada, yada. And I don't remember if it was our realtor or if it was the realtor for the people that was selling the house. They were like, they had the floods in 2015, 16, whatever that was.
Rare case.
But it was an anomaly. Like, it wasn't,
They
anything.
could have said it first.
They said it first, because that's where you got the word from. So.
Why would I pronounce it?
You didn't, because it's okay. So they said it, whatever, cool. We moved on. So we went to view a different house, and he was having our conversation with our realtor, and he was like, "Yeah, an anomaly." And I was like,
so it was a different setting.
Yeah, it was a different setting,
okay.
And I was like, "Okay, he's not gonna say it again. It's fine. I'll tell him when we get home." And he said it like 3 or 4 times throughout that day. And finally, we went in the car to go to the next house or something like that. And I was like, my love, I just want to let you know that word that you keep saying, like, it's not pronounced like that. It's anomaly. And he was like, well, what am I saying? And I was like, you're saying anomaly. And he was like, I am.
Oblivious. I was like, no, I'm not. I can't be saying
I was like, yes, love.
It's an anomaly. It's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly.
And he says it right now.
Mm-hmm. I carefully put those words and letters and pronunciations together.
But the thing about it is, whenever you correct your partner in public in front of people, you don't know how your partner's going to take it. Mm-hmm. They can be embarrassed and not want to talk to you. They can be offended and you thinking that they stupid, whatever the case may be. So that small thing, like, yeah, the person that he was speaking to might have been like, maybe I heard that wrong, and just brush it off. I heard it. I'm going to tell him that, you know, what he said wasn't the correct word, but I'm not going to tell him in front of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I greatly appreciate. So, yeah, defend in public, correct in private. But there's another side of that. There's one thing to defend to a fault. Don't defend when you know your partner is completely wrong. The best case, I say, in that situation is just turn to your partner, knowing that they're wrong, and just like diffuse whatever that's rising. So if they're getting in an argument that they're probably going to lose, or they're probably in like somewhat of a debate about something that's maybe not even serious, just diffuse it. Just be like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And just probably give them that look like, no, it's not, you're not going to win this debate. You're not going to win this. Just, hey, reel it in, because this ain't the one. Defending in public, it needs to be done the right way. But know what you defended. Now in private, approach it gracefully, because again, you don't know how your partner is going to take it. Luckily, I'm not like a hard-headed person anymore to take stuff to heart and be like, man, what are you talking about? No, man, no.
And it takes practice. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. There was a point in time where I would try to correct him in private or public, and he would just look at me like, I know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm telling you, you're wrong. And me correcting in public was probably one of the things that made him have the attitude about it. And once we had the conversation about deciding to, if you're wrong in public, we're just going to have some signals, some something. If I think you're wrong and you think I'm wrong, but we're not going to correct each other in public if it's not anything that's dire.
I feel like you're trying to play me.
So
that's that.
Having that conversation and then deciding like, okay, if you're wrong and I give you this signal or this sign and you don't want to take my advice, I'm going to correct you in private, because I don't ever want my man to feel like I don't have his back. End of story.
Right.
And if it takes for you to be proven wrong by somebody else because you didn't want to listen to me, that's the road you decided to go down. We have these parameters set in place. And if you don't want to follow what we agreed to follow, then that's the journey that you decided to take.
Now, going back to the winning of the arguments thing. I, as a man, had to like really look into the stigma of when men say yes, dear, because there be times where she'll say something and there's no point in getting into a debate about it, where you just gotta say yes and maybe circle back on something. Because what I noticed for men, or for conversations I've had with my friends, all of them at one point, where a woman may tell you something that just don't seem to add up, and this happened with us too, and you may respond to what they're telling you. It could be something of a correction. It could be of something that they may see something in you that they don't agree with, and you may want to have backlash, or you might want to have a response to it. Your response is null and void, because when they're bringing something to your attention, they're bringing it to you not to receive anything back. From what I've noticed, or there may be situations where that might not be the time for you to respond to what she's bringing to you about you or about a situation. Say that to say why the stigma is just say yes, dear. But just say yes, dear, but with a very strategic follow-up. So there will be times where she may bring something to me. She may say something that was off-putting, that she may felt like, I feel like you was doing this and that. And I don't think she's willing or in the state to listen to what I have to say about, well, it wasn't like that. It was like this. It could be more so like, I just want to make it aware to you that this is how I felt. Take that. Cool. Let it sink in. Yes, I understand. Cool. And come back with like, all right, so one of the things I've been trying to practice on doing, we haven't had much of those situations, so you probably don't know I'm practicing this, but it's just to be, I'll take that consideration and let me ponder on that. Or I'll take that in consideration, thank you for telling me, let me reflect on what you just told me. Come back to them and be like, all right, I reflect on what you was telling me, and that way you notice, hey, I did notice that I did have a certain tone in which I said something like that. However, that tone was meant to be put out this way. So there's a way to say, like, not having a response, but just not letting it completely go.
So, yes. So the thing about that is, if I bring something to your attention, I'm like, hey, whenever you told me you was going to take out the trash and you didn't take out the trash, that pissed me off. And instead of being reactive and being like, well, I was going to do it when I got ready to do it, you could be like, I get it. Give me a second. Like, let me figure out what happened, and I can come back and talk to you about it. Acknowledge that you heard what they said, but you can also say, I want to talk about it right now. I'm just not in the space to do that. And then if 10 minutes, 5 minutes, the next day you come back and it's like, hey, I wanted to apologize. I know I said I was going to do that. I got caught up doing X, Y, Z, or it got dark and I didn't want to go outside in the dark, whatever the case may be. But thank you for letting me know how it made you feel.
Nah, so that's a light situation. But I'm going to use that same situation, but where you need to reflect on how it was given to you and you coming back with a response. So, for example, if she come up to me and telling me, like, you didn't take out the trash, you see, like, with an attitude, then at that moment, you got two things. You respond with a negative attitude back because, one, she's right, but is the tone you didn't like. So you can't argue the fact that she's right about that. Like, you're supposed to take out the trash, but you do have a grounds of an argument because I don't like how you just told me that. Like, you didn't have to come at me like that. Like, you could just remind me that I didn't take out the trash. So with situations like that is where you be like, all right, cool. I'll take out the trash. Just go ahead, take a step back, reflect on what you said. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, come back to like, yeah, appreciate you telling me to take out the trash. However, break down, like, I really got caught up doing this, that, my fault, but whenever you tell me these type of things, can you not give it to me in a tone that's like really aggressive like that? Because again, I had a long day or I just completely forgot. But you telling me like that is not going to make me remember. It's just going to make me resent you or do it out of spite or not even want to, like, is.
So I agree with that to an extent. The only thing I want to correct, wording is very important in everyday life. One thing I will say, if you are stating a need, do not make it an option. Do not question it. Do not be like, whenever you tell me stuff, can you not? Like, don't make it an option, because that gives me the option. I can do it or I can't do it. That's up to me.
Yeah. You're
make
right.
it a requirement. So it's like,
I
hey,
need you
whenever you tell me these
dial
things,
back.
Your delivery to me is very important. I don't want you to say it with, however you want to put it, an attitude. I don't want you to come off aggressive, whatever. I would appreciate it more if you, and insert what you need there. Do not make it an option whenever you're stating a need, whenever you're giving a boundary. It is not an option because it's something that you need for yourself.
And again, it's going to take some practice. And I hate that the practice will have to be within a real life situation. Or, well, no, practicing could be like, okay, checking of tone. Like, how is it you receive messages? What best way I could say this for you to not feel some type of way? Like, if you forget about something. You know what I'm saying?
But practicing also comes with family, friends, work, all of that. It doesn't have to just be in a relationship.
Yeah.
So if I had an issue apparently growing up that I didn't know I had, but I was very aggressive with certain family members and how I spoke with people. People that saw me be aggressive with certain family members, they were looking at me like I was crazy. And then once they figured out our dynamic, it was like, oh, that's just them. But there are certain places where you need to practice certain behaviors. And I learned that later in life. And even now, like, say I'm talking to one of his friends or whatever, like, if he's around and I feel like the conversation's not going too great, I'm looking at him like, did I say something wrong? Like, do we need to change the subject? Like, what's going on? But even within our relationship, I personally know that sometimes if I have a bad day at work or whatever the case may be, I gotta come home. It's my night to cook. I just don't feel like doing it. I'm aggravated. I ask him to do something simple. He don't get it done in the timely manner or the time frame I want him to get it done in. Not necessarily a timely manner, but the time that I set in my head for it to be done and it's not done. That's another problem. If you want something done in a certain time, don't imagine it in your head. Speak it. People are not mind readers.
All right.
So if I be like, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I need you to take out the trash. Like, I'm going to finish cook whatever. And I expect him to do it in the next 10 minutes because I know I'm about to throw away a bunch of stuff and the trash can is full. And he does it at the end of the night at 7:30. I can't be pissed off at him. I didn't give him a time frame. He still did it. Mm-hmm. But people make arguments about that. And if he decided to do it at 7 o'clock and I come at him and be like, why did you wait so long to take out the trash?
I got it done. Like,
you did it. You did what I asked. And it's like, at that moment, I need to check my tone and I need to check myself. And what I started doing with him is if I feel like it's aggressive or if I feel like how I said it to him was not in a loving fashion, I pause. I literally do this and I'd be like, check my tone. And I tell him to check me. Like, if he feels like that was not an appropriate way to speak with him, I want him to correct me in that moment. Because especially if he hasn't done anything to me and I know that other things are going on, I am not taking my anger out on this man. I love this man. End of story. Like, if I need him to be like, hey, whoa, that was not good. Thank you. Because I needed that. Let me rephrase.
I completely agree with that. So when it comes to just arguments or how to prevent them is really a lot to do with practicing the approach, understanding that person's point of view without a response in your back pocket or a response period, taking and assessing, and it's okay to come back to it. Don't come back to it a week later. Come back to it that day because you don't want to go to bed angry. You don't want to go to bed with that. It's okay to take a breath and be like, and just, I was joking to begin to just take it in the chin, but it's okay to be like, let me think about what you said and I'll respond to you accordingly of how we can make this better.
And remember, arguments are not about I won, you won. It's about a mutual understanding. That's the most important thing. Mutual understanding.
Because I promise if you leave, walk away, or just like, F it, and you feel like you lost, that means that conversation did not go.
Whether you walk away feeling like you won or lost, that conversation was not a good conversation. You should feel neutral at the end of a debate, at the end of an argument. Because if you feel like you won, that other person gave up and their point was completely missed. Their opinion was completely disregarded. If you feel like you lost, that same feeling you got is how they would have felt if they lost.
True. Now, what we do every time we get in an argument or debate, we look at each other in the eyes like, are we good? Like, you straight? Are you okay? Seal it with a forehead kiss them, like, and like, all right, cool. Hug it out, deep breaths. Like, all right, what you want for dinner? Just leave it at that. Now, this is a special episode because Valentine's Day is among us. My gift or my surprise is not going to be here in time, but she got something for me that she's willing to display. And say that because I might have to cut it short because I got to dip. I just realized what time it was.
Oh.
So yeah, this is gonna be a special Valentine's Day episode. But again, this is really the subject that lasted about 20 minutes. So I'm glad we put out what we put out. Anyway, yeah, you got a gift for me, right?
I have a gift for him.
All right, so
can I give background first?
give a background. Go by all means.
I am one of the corniest people you will ever meet in your entire life. I love corny gifts.
Okay.
And I love thoughtful gifts.
All right.
So I'm gonna go get it.
Here we go. All right. Wait to cushion. Might be something I can
Let me
wear.
move our sushi. Okay.
All right. Here we go. It's heavy. I don't know. Oh, it's two things. So this is yours and mine, right?
Yeah.
That's dope. Where did you get this from?
Read it.
If we, all right, hold on. I'm gonna put the music on top of that. If we listen to each other's heart, we'll find we're never too far apart. Hold on, let me really show y'all what it is. You got little mix Maxine. Is it Maxine? What's her name? No, Roxanne, and Max. This shit is dope. This is fire. This is fire. I'm wearing this a lot.
Do you want to give your background as to what this means?
So man, when I first met this girl, like, of course I'm a Disney head, and the Goofy movie was a dope music. Like the soundtrack was Tevin Campbell was cold. I had that song blasting. That was my ringtone for the longest. I think it was probably before I met her. And this right here is just top of the line. Something I would love to wear. And thank you.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed it. And I like how she treated herself with this for matching. But yeah, this is a good gift. We got to take a picture with this on, because I like this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there.
Happy Valentine's Day.
All right, so bring us home.
This has been Realationshitz, where we talk about real shit in relationships. I am your wife.
I am your husband.
And remember, it's always okay to agree to disagree.
But as long as you finish a conversation with mutual respect, you can go to bed happy without missing out on some sushi. Good night, everybody.
Good night.